The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Tone Vase from Liberty Life Trail.
Hello, everyone.
And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to issue 1. Issue 1. The court says yes. A federal court ruled on Wednesday that the John Doe summons against Coinbase for all user data for the last 3 years will go forward. Early attempts to limit the request to high-value accounts have been swept aside, but Coinbase says they will appeal this ruling. Is Bitcoin privacy over? Did it even exist in the first place? Update: Coinbase is also claiming that every Bitcoin sent from its site counts as a sale, meaning that you could owe taxes on the transaction, no matter its purpose or destination. Tone Vase, is this the end of Coinbase? I got an email from them this morning asking me to buy more cryptocurrency, but why would anyone purposely buy from such a honeypot again? Were they really running a business, or were they just running an entrapment scam by selling Bitcoin users an asset that they could never properly hold and would eventually incur their financial downfall? I ask you, Tone Vase.
Yes. To the second half of that. Okay, look, guys. To me, I know to everyone this is like the story. To me, this is a non-story. Because I said this last year, the year before. I've said this pretty much since the day I heard of Coinbase's existence. So this doesn't faze me one bit, because I've never even considered opening an account on Coinbase. And if you did open an account on Coinbase, I don't think you should have the right to complain. I mean, you should have known this. I mean, this isn't like, oh, I didn't know. No, you should have known. So I'm glad that the Court of Appeals, or whoever, the federal judge, or whoever it was, very quickly ruled that the John Doe was valid, because I mean, Coinbase cannot fight this. Coinbase knows. I mean, they're only saying this. I mean, again, as I said on this show a few weeks ago, if I was an investor in Coinbase, I would literally stand there in the boardroom and say, why the hell are you going to waste our money on lawyers? This is why you were KYCing in the first place. This was so obvious from the IRS ruling. This ruling came in, everyone became a criminal that did not pay their taxes. What made it worse is that the burden of maintaining these taxes is on the individual. It is not on Coinbase. Coinbase is viewed, at the moment you take the Bitcoin off their site, even if you're transferring it to your own wallet, they consider it a sale, is also completely valid. Again, people underestimate the maturity of financial brokers. I'm not saying exchanges. You don't trade on the NASDAQ. You don't trade, well, you kind of, the stock trades on the NASDAQ, but you don't have access to the NASDAQ. Your broker has access to the NASDAQ. My broker is Interactive Brokers. It used to be Options Express. At one point, it was E-Trade. It doesn't matter. So they do the accounting for you. They do all the accounting. Will you be able to just print out an entire list of all your trades? They'll also give you a summary. This is how much money you made this year. This is how much of it was long-term capital gains. This is how much of it is short-term capital gains. They give it all to you, because the moment you sell that stock, it's sold. Coinbase is doing exactly what it should do. Coinbase is doing exactly what you should have expected them to do. This is where you pay the difference, right? So people were making fun of me. Why aren't you saving 15% by using purse.io? And my answer to them was, because it is difficult for me to replenish my Bitcoin supply. I have X amount of Bitcoins. I don't even have that many. If I use them at purse.io, saving 15%, I then have to go into the streets, usually paying 5 to 10% premium on that Bitcoin. And you people at Coinbase were paying 1% to buy that Bitcoin, laughing at me for not doing it. And this is why I wasn't doing it. So this is what you get now, because now you will have to pay that difference. You're going to pay it one way or the other. This is where markets are kind of efficient. So, I mean, I also avoided Purse.io for other reasons. I mean, the same John Doe subpoena could go to Circle and it could go to Purse.io because they do have a record of the transactions, or they should if Purse.io is smart. And the John Doe subpoena can go to Purse.io and they can say how much Bitcoin was spent by user of where the goods were delivered. And then they can see if there was a high net worth user. Like, for example, if you've ordered, $20,000 worth of goods from Amazon in a calendar year, and they were all delivered to the same address and they were all paid in Bitcoin, the IRS can now, I mean, again, if the same John Doe subpoena goes to Purse.io, the IRS can then show up at that address and say, you have the burden of proof to show us that you paid taxes on this $20,000 worth of Bitcoin purchases. Those Bitcoins, and when did you get them? So this is, of course, I thought the IRS ruling was absolutely terrible. And the moment that IRS ruling came in, I basically said the use of Bitcoin in America is basically criminal unless you keep your own IRS records to prove that you're not a criminal. And even then, you're basically going to be proving that you are not a tax evader against people that don't understand Bitcoin. So again, this is more of a reason why people were making fun of me. Oh, how come you don't use Bitcoin to buy your plane tickets? How come you don't use Bitcoin to buy this and that? And Thomas, you and I have had private discussions about this when I was in San Francisco, and I explained this. And this is the reason why.
And you are right then, and your point of view has been correct. Using Bitcoin through Coinbase is not the same as using Bitcoin through local Bitcoins, where you meet a person face to face, you trade the cash for the Bitcoins. It's always been a more trackable, more auditable option. I assume most people like myself who bought Bitcoin through Coinbase have paid taxes on them and will continue to pay taxes and are doing their best to deal with what seems like very draconian and Orwellian regulations as the confusion, as an honest person attempting to pay the tax, unsure of what to do.
Right.
But
and I understand that. And again, like, people are like, oh, just pay your taxes. No, it's not that freaking easy, because how do you pay taxes on something that they don't understand? I mean, they understand it to a minor extent.
and
But
their misclassification of this as a commodity instead of a currency has led to this situation. If it's a currency and it's money and it flows around, you pay the taxes when you take money in or out of the system, which makes sense to me. When you're moving money around in the system, like from wallet to wallet, from checking to savings, you don't need to pay taxes on it. At least that's if it were a currency.
Correct. Now what Coinbase should have done is, but again, Coinbase is going down either way.
Now, don't you think, you were saying earlier you would have fought against them fighting this as a shareholder, but don't you think they're looking at their customers and they're saying a lot of our customers are libertarians, cyberpunk anarchists, a lot of our brand, Bitcoin's brand, is being anonymous or semi-anonymous? Don't you think they're trying to protect that by fighting this?
No, I think that's hypocritical. If they really cared about their libertarian customers, they wouldn't have started a KYC company. No, I think that's very hypocritical. I think if anything, Coinbase took advantage of those libertarians, selling them something that they couldn't offer. I mean, basically, they were selling them snake oil.
I mean, obviously, what's the worst case scenario here? The worst case scenario, you're a libertarian cyberpunk Bitcoiner. You bought Bitcoin early. You moved it to Coinbase, sold it for a bunch of cash, and then didn't pay the taxes on it. Presumably, you would owe back taxes, penalties. Is that the basic worst case? I mean,
I don't know. No, I mean, look, they're going to go after the big fish first. They're going to go after the high volume users. Um, I mean, look, this is going to be a nightmare. I mean, well, but again, right, they're going to hire a company like Chainalysis or Elliptic or whoever is tracking all these addresses. I mean, and also, look, all you Coinbase users, you're the reason why I'm scared to use my Bitcoin as an American citizen, because I don't want to be, I don't want to be mapped into this into this web of interconnected people. So look, everyone is fighting for Bitcoin to be legitimized, but it's hard to do when the laws are clearly saying that uh, it's not openly legit as a currency. It's only legit as an investment. So if you're not using Bitcoin the way the government says you should use it, you're basically putting, in my opinion, you're putting your peers at risk. So I mean,
Now,
again,
there
you
is
can
another side to this where civil disobedience, people continuing to use Bitcoin, eventually could change the status quo. We had a similar situation perhaps with downloading. People downloaded music, they downloaded movies, they seemingly refused to stop regardless of the punishment or the penalties. And now our society is in an attempt to normalize downloading. It's pretty much okay. Most people pay for content when they can, but if you can't get it, people take alternative resources. Is this like, is
well,
it a
sort
civil
of, right?
disobedience?
I mean, the smart people went and started using Tor, right? I mean, the system went to be decentralized. Now, Bitcoin started out as decentralized, but then people at Coinbase decided to centralize it. So it's actually kind of like the other way around. So it's more I mean, it'll probably go back to this decentralized way. My guess is the IRS will probably come out and put people at ease, and telling them that there'll be like up to $200, up to $500, like a reasonable amount that people don't have to worry about it. Also, the mistake that Coinbase did is they basically turned their service into an exchange. If Coinbase to this kind of model, kind of takes time to buy, kind of takes time to sell, like basically Coinbase, if Coinbase would have made it a little more difficult to like be trading this stuff, if Coinbase was more open about the tax situation, which they should have known, and they should have like provided people at year end, like my broker does, gives me a history of the trades and the history. And if Coinbase would have like sent people monthly statements of their Bitcoin usage through CoinDesk and their capital gains, not percentage-wise, but the amounts, right? So they can use even their own freaking index of prices. They know what the damn prices are. They know when you moved coins in and out of Coinbase. All Coinbase had to do was provide people with monthly statements and year-end statement of this is your tax liability. I don't know if they did that. I've never used Coinbase. I've never watched
And I
anybody
think
use
this
Coinbase.
refers back to the question as to whether or not this wasn't a business, or unfortunately, whether or not if this was a business that sold in a way defective products, Bitcoin that to use as financial peril, and that they could have maybe taken care of their customers rather than what it feels like now, where you may have only moved a few $1,000s through Coinbase. You maybe didn't make, maybe even lost money on Bitcoin, but you still moved money in and you moved money out. But now you're in this total fear because of the company not taking care of you, or is it your own responsibility? There's a definite argument there.
I agree with you. And you know what? And everyone, I know all the libertarians hate regulations, but you know what? I am very happy that my broker is regulated and forced to send me a year-end statement. How much? I mean, I've day traded. I've literally made 20 trades per day. There's no way in hell.
If you had to pay the tax on each time the stock went in and the stock went out and the stock went, and the points on all of this, it's maddening.
No, I do, right? But the thing is, the regulation forces that broker this up for me and then sent me on one piece of paper how much money I made or lost through this. I mean, it's also easy for me to tell if I just basically kept track, but there's also transaction fees, right? Like I can make or lose, right? Let's say I made $10,000 in trading this year in profit, but I really made $25,000, but I traded so much that 15,000 of it was commission. And this is possible, by the way. You can make $10,000 and pay $100,000 in commission. You actually made 110,000, but 100,000 of it was commission. This is very, very possible if you trade often enough. And these things actually happen to some. I mean, look, if I make $100,000 in 1 year trading, I don't care if I had to pay $100,000 in commission. I kind of care. I mean, this is why you go with a cheap broker to kind of minimize that. But I'm not doing this math myself. And even if I was doing this math myself, they will let me export an Excel spreadsheet with this stuff, and then it's easy for me to do the math. But the regulation forces them to keep track of this for me. Now, there was no regulatory enforcement on CoinDesk to provide this tax information to their users. The moment the tax authority came up with their regulation, oh, Thomas, by the way, Ian is on full screen. I don't know if you knew that, and it's just like his face. I don't know if that's how it's being recorded or not. Just a heads up.
I think it's going out fine, but we'll check with the comments. Thanks.
Okay, now I see you. Now I see you. And I think you're in control of who's on the big screen. And should have immediately taken the initiative and at a minimum send out a yearly statement of the user's tax liability that they can now hand over a page to the accountant and say,
it's possible. I think they have some kind of a statement generator, but I don't think it's 100% like a Libra tax or a Bitcoin tax thing that I've heard about. But yeah, I do agree. They could have taken the responsibility and given that kind of information to their customers, really tried to protect their customers, especially the larger scale ones. I mean, not just the.
Because look, we're all freaking lazy. Like I keep saying to myself, I'm gonna keep track of my. I mean, I'm talking about trading, right? I'm talking about like legal trading. Look, my trader account is registered, right? So I have to pay taxes on it, and I keep telling myself every month I'm gonna take a look at what I have, and I get lazy, and then like the year ends, and I'm like, I should really take a look at how much I made, and I get lazy, and then all of a sudden I realize, holy crap, taxes are due in about 2 weeks. I'm always busy, and I'm scrambling, and I'm like, is this how much the exchange telling me I made or lost? Fine, I'm just going to give this piece of paper to my accountant because I trust my broker to get it right. Now, Coinbase should have taken the initiative and done exactly the same thing. The problem is that a lot of these people, a lot of these Bitcoin traders, a lot of these altcoin traders, people using Bitcoin, a lot of these people, they have never traded in real life. They have no idea what capital gains taxes even are. For a lot of these Bitcoiners, the idea of this will be their first introduction in their lives to what capital gains taxes are. They have absolutely no clue. So Coinbase putting this responsibility, I think, is ridiculous, especially if they want to be treated professionally and responsibly as a regulated entity.
And this really is a young community. If you think back to Mt. Gox, I think about the stories I heard of waitresses who invested a few $100s in Bitcoin, then suddenly their account was worth $100,000. And sadly, these waitresses just left their funds in there. They lost all their money. Hopefully they got some back in the bankruptcy restoration. But yeah, you have to manage your money differently when it's a larger amount. If you sold $100,000 worth of Bitcoin through Coinbase, I imagine you're getting a phone call. If you sold a few thousand, I mean, certainly it's unfortunate. You want to try to account for that on your taxes as best you can. But the actual accounting of it, keeping it truth to the record project, it's impossible. I don't think it's possible for a normal person. Maybe with a software.
I agree.
You could do it.
I agree, and that was one of the things that I did not personally want to deal with. Like, there's some things that like your time is worth money, and how much effort you spent is worth money. And one of the things I didn't want to deal with, even if I use Coinbase, even if I told my accountant how much capital, even if I did spend the time tracking all of my, by the way, Coinbase isn't the same. I mean, if I was anyone here, And again, do you want to spend the time? If you are a purse.io user, are you going to take the time at a small chance that they will get the same subpoena, which would be a little trickier for them to achieve, right? If you're a Circle user, if you use Circle and Coinbase, if you used, what do you call them? Bitfinex, I mean, any KYC exchange, any of them, right? Are you going to spend all this time tracking your own Bitcoin? You gotta get the damn data. I mean, again, Brave New Coin, there you go, a little plug. You can go to them and get the historical data of how much each Bitcoin was at every hour, at every day, right? But are you going to spend your own time and effort doing this as a defensive measure in case the IRS calls you? Have you been doing it and bringing it to your accountant? Suppose you are so diligent, which I knew I wasn't going to be. I mean, I know what I am and not going to do, which is one of the reasons why I stayed away from all of Bitcoin. If you are the kind of person that crossed every, that crossed every T and dotted every I, and complied with the IRS statements and told your accountant, look, you don't need to know what Bitcoin is, but please write down that I made $8,000 in an investment gains. And then the IRS calls you and says, did you pay capital gains? And you say, yes, I did. Go out and prove it. And now you're trying to prove something that you understand and they don't. And you're going to sit there and argue. You can spend God knows how much time when you know that you're right, but you're trying to explain it to people that may not see it the way you do. They may not see sending it to another address. How do you prove a negative? Like, you can't prove a negative. And when it comes to Bitcoin and anonymous Bitcoin addresses, you're going to be in court or in front of the IRS. Now, this is a very, I'm fairly risk averse. It's probably not going to happen to the average person. But in case it does, you're going to stand there and you're going to spend an entire day at the IRS building ripping your hair out trying to explain to them how and why you're like the one guy that complied with all the taxes. And you're gonna like sit there going, but I paid it. And then you try to explain to them that you actually did. Like, this is a very frustrating position. You're gonna be like, hell, I wish I took the illegal route. It's like I mean, even way before Bitcoin, when I was like explaining things to people, they were like, oh, you're a pirater. I mean, I shouldn't probably announce this. The last time I paid for a song was last century or last millennia. I mean, I haven't paid for. Last time I paid for a song was probably 1997. Okay, I don't have time to download anymore. I haven't had time in a while, but that's last time I paid for. People ask me, well, why are you pirating and stuff? You know, what my answer has been for a decade. It's just easier. It was just easier for me. Like the moment iTunes restricted the playing of a song to 5 iTunes accounts, and I barely remembered my iTunes password to the store. Easier. I have the MP3. I store the MP3. It's on my thumb drive. I'm a DJ. I can plug the damn thing into any computer. I can just play it. I'm at home. I'm going to forget my damn password. God forbid my computer crashes. I don't like using clouds. I don't like using other people's servers. I'm sorry. Pirating music is just easier. All they have to do is make it easier, and I don't have to. I'm cheap. I might have still been pirating.
Well, and that system made the change. Music is different now. iTunes Music, Spotify Music, these subscription services, they let you download them to your phone so you can use them even if you're not connected to the internet. Even this week we saw Netflix at long last let people download videos, only kind of Netflix originals and TV shows right now. But you can download those to your phone, go to the gym, go on a train or an airplane where you don't have internet access and still access that content, which is what the pirated content has been able to do for years. So they've just now, maybe 16, 20 years later, finally caught up to what a original pirated or DRM-free file would give you the offer.
I guess they did. I don't know. Like, now I'm at an age.
I mean, they still charge. You have to pay a little bit.
I've grown out of music, basically.
Yeah, we can hear you.
I can't get my webcam to work. It's working on camera. It's just not working on Google Hangouts, so I don't know what to do about that.
Yeah, no, Google Hangouts has been like crashing for me left and right these days. I don't know what the hell they're doing.
I just got my very first blue screen of death on Windows 10 from it. Trying to use that. I sent
Yeah,
you
no,
a
I mean,
picture
like
of it, Tom.
Nice. Yeah. Well, we're live, so we're going to keep going in. But we're talking about Coinbase and the IRS decision. What do you think of Coinbase and the IRS? Tone's pretty much said they should have to give it up. They're going to give it up. They KYC'd for this purpose. Everyone should have known. But the incredible burden placed upon Bitcoin users to track the price of Bitcoin every time they buy, they sell, they move their funds around. What do you think of this, Ian?
Well, I mean, Coinbase did say that they're going to fight it in court. So, you know, I want to give them credit for, you know, not just everyone acts like they're the patsies or the pets of the authorities or something. But, you know, they're going to fight it in court. So I think that's very encouraging. But to Tone's point, I mean, when you use Coinbase, you got to expect that those coins are going to be tracked by some sort of authority figure. So, I mean, it was unexpected, but it's not like a complete surprise that this happened. I hope Coinbase does fight it in court, because I do think it's a violation of privacy to just have this over-sweeping subpoena that's going to affect every single Coinbase user. You know, like how often do you see the FBI ask for a bank's information on every single one of their customers, you know? So
especially with Wells Fargo, they would have had to ask for 3 or 4 times the number of accounts.
Mm-hmm. So, you know, I'm going to be definitely paying attention to the case and hoping that Coinbase wins. You know, I hope they fight it as hard as they can, and I think the Bitcoin community should get behind them. You know, not monetarily or anything, because they got plenty of money, but you know, just give them some moral support and fighting this attack really on our privacy. You know, so many users use Coinbase that it should really be seen as an attack on Bitcoin users in general. I mean, how long will it be till we get a subpoena for Circle and so many others? What I really like, though, you guys may have seen Brian Hoffman had a nice tweet about this, where he's just saying, "Game on, Coinbase and IRS." You know, this is what's going to cause us to make more things that allow us to get around the authorities, and it's going to make it much harder for them. The harder they try to squeeze and cramp down, the more we're going to slip through their fingers, and more technology is going to be built. You know, they just went after Coinbase or Coinbase customers in a responsible way, you know, at targeted users that they suspected to be criminals, then that'd be one thing. But since they're going to be doing this oversweeping legislations, I think it's going to be the kick in the pants to the development community to build some sort of alternative that doesn't rely on this kind of centralization and doesn't rely on the banks quite as much as a place like Coinbase and Circle does.
And I think this. Go ahead, Tom.
Okay. No, I was just gonna say. So the reason why this kind of a John Doe tax thing doesn't go to the banks is because the banks are only holding your money, but IRS said Bitcoin isn't money, right? So I know the IRS said Bitcoin is property, but to me it sounds a lot more like a stock. Like Bitcoin is like Microsoft stock, right? So in which case, and they're treating it completely as short-term capital gains, right? So no long-term holding. Or is it long-term? I don't know. It could be both. It depends how long you hold it, but it doesn't matter. So to me, Coinbase is like a broker. They're like an E-Trade thing. Something like E-Trade is regulated. And this is what I said earlier. Not only does E-Trade inform you as at E-Trade how much money in capital gains you've made at the end of the year, so you can bring this piece of paper to your accountant, and he looks at the money that E-Trade told you have made after commissions down into your tax form, and he knows how much taxes you need to pay, or how much, or if you can take a loss, right? Like if you've lost money on these. On top of that, E-Trade also sends this information to the IRS. And I know this for a fact because when I first started trading, I didn't even know nothing about taxes. And then all of a sudden, like 3 years later, I get this IRS inquiry, paid capital gains taxes like 3 years ago on your brokerage, because the IRS knows this information because of regulation. Now, Coinbase doesn't have this regulation. First of all, Coinbase wasn't mandated to provide capital gains, losses, or gains to its consumers, and they did not take the initiative to do so. On top of that, Coinbase doesn't have a direct line to the IRS to provide this information to them, which is why when you don't pay your capital gains taxes, because if you're a trader of the financial markets, the IRS eventually knows you did not pay those taxes. Again, the reason for this John Doe subpoena, and I have to agree with it. Look, I'm not gonna sit here and scream libertarianism. This is what I've been dealing with in the financial markets for the last 10 years. So maybe I'm used to it, and this is what I expected. So because Coinbase did not have a direct channel to the IRS to provide them this information on every single user, the IRS has to do this, force Coinbase to build this channel.
And I think this goes well into the exit question. So we'd like to ask, will this continue? Is this the beginning of a wave of investigations into other companies such as Circle, Purse.io, maybe some of the exchanges like Kraken? Will we see more of this? Will this roll over into the ICOs and the various crowdfunding? Tone Vase, has the government woken up to Bitcoin in a negative way?
Oh, I mean, this should basically, my guess is Circle is already on the phone with the IRS saying, how do we avoid, bad publicity for our users? And I guarantee you that starting this year, Coinbase will send you gains on a sheet of paper saying you bring this to your accountant. And sorry, not Coinbase, Circle, or Coinbase as well, but Circle they're going to preemptively do this. Kraken will do it for their US customers. Again, I mean, all these KYC companies initiative, they're going to take this seriously because they know if they get this subpoena on them, they're going to have to deal with it in crunch time. Companies will actually contact. If I was running Circle, this is what I would be doing right now. First of all, I would be building, get a developer, make them compile all of this. I mean, you have the damn data. I mean, they're the ones that are buying and selling. I would send all my US customers and probably EU customers. I don't know what their taxes are. I don't know what but even if you don't know what the tax regime is, here's what happened to the IRS. The IRS didn't just say, they said you owe it retroactively back to 2009. So Circle needs to be even contacting those people that haven't even used their system in years and backdating this stuff from the very first Circle. They should be notifying their customers how much capital gains they earned by moving their coins in and out of Circle. And then it becomes the customer's responsibility. Back when they moved their funds out of Circle, where did those funds go? Did they sell it or did they just move it to their own wallet? I mean, this is going to be a nightmare. But going forward, everyone is going to know, is going to put this information into their terms of service. They're going to provide you with this information. And I bet you Circle is going to have a direct channel to the IRS. Broker does, just like E-Trade does, to the IRS, so that the IRS knows how much the user made. And if that amount isn't on their tax form, the IRS will just notify the user directly.
Ian DiMartino, will we see more raids like this?
Yeah, I think Circle's pretty much probably the next on their list, though there is a little bit difference because Coinbase kind of encourages the day trading. They got a day trading platform there, as opposed to Circle. It's more just to buy Bitcoins and move them to exchanges or to save them. There's not like a high volume trading where you can see the graphs and everything. You just see the price and buy it. So maybe they won't, take as much interest in Circle as, a site that's encouraging high volume trading like that. But I would suspect that the next logical step would be to go after Circle. Will they be going after like Kraken and all those other sites? I mean, it just remains to be seen. But we all knew this was coming. The Bitcoin regulation started with the BIT license in New York, and it's just been building and building up. I'm gonna have to see how it goes. I'm a little surprised to see it happen when we're having a transition in the government. next administration might take a different policy on these kind of things. So it's interesting to see him make such a big move during this time. But I guess, it was in the process of happening a long time ago, and this is just coming to the public recently. But
Tone does make a good point that other businesses like E-Trade do provide this information not only to the customer but to the IRS. So it seems like Coinbase, while they weren't required to do this, they probably should have been doing it anyway. It seems like this ruling is going to force that. So
yeah, but there's so many. Tone compared Bitcoin to a stock, and for a lot of ways he's right, but we all know Bitcoin is unique in the number of properties it has and the type of things you can do with it. So it's not really like that for everyone. Not everyone uses it like a stock. I don't know if the IRS. Well, let me finish.
IRS doesn't care exactly.
Yeah, IRS that's what I'm getting to. Is so. Please let me finish. I don't know if the IRS is going to make that distinction. I would suspect that they're not. But we're like anything. We're just gonna have to wait and see. And if you're doing something illegal with your Bitcoins, you should have already been taking precautions. And if you're not, well then I guess you should start worrying.
The presumed victim here is people who made large financial gains on Bitcoin. If you bought Bitcoin on Coinbase and then spent them on Silk Road, you have all kinds of other issues. You're on your own there. But this has been known. We've warned and discussed about this. But let's
one quick comment. Sorry.
Right.
So Coinbase isn't big enough to basically push back. They're just not. So what you basically need is you need a company like Amazon start accepting Bitcoin as a payment for their goods. And then Amazon can make a phone call to the IRS and say, hey, can we make all Bitcoin transactions under $1,000 that are clearly made for purchasing goods and services, treated as money and not as investment vehicles? So that is what you need. You need a company with the size to make them listen.
Everyone write to Jeff Bezos today. Let's move on.
Hold on. Can I say one more thing real quick?
All right, go ahead.
I wouldn't say that they're too big to fight back. They're plenty big. They've gotten I forget how many different seed rounds they've had where they've raised millions and millions of dollars.
I think they've already blown
million in 2015. I don't know if they're big enough to win, but they're definitely big enough to pay for a lawyer and bring this to court and see where it goes. And it's possible that other exchanges and other Bitcoin businesses may join them in that fight. But
I think they've raised a lot of money.
If you can't pay for a congressman, you're not big enough. That's just generally my opinion.
And I'm saying they might not be big enough to win, but they'll be big enough to fight and bring this to court.
They've raised a lot of money, but I'm not sure they make a lot of money. And I think you have to do both to really play in this higher level game. But we need to move on to issue 2 because we're running out of time. Issue 2, Bitcoin 750. The Bitcoin price has been bouncing back, refusing to go below 720 with repeated tests of the 750 level. Right now, it's sitting at 770 and 74 cents, according to CoinDesk on my screen. What is driving the Bitcoin price rise? China, India, the IRS, and Coinbase? Or is it simply time for Bitcoin to rise higher from the recent halvening? Ian DiMartino, your thoughts on the price rise?
Yeah, we've seen with Bitcoin, the history has been these giant jumps up in price that Bitcoin is $1 and then all of a sudden it's $30, or it's $30 and all of a sudden it's $1,300. I think what we're going to see this time, and keeping in mind that last price rise up to the $1,300, we don't know how real that price rise was because of all the funny business going on Mt. Gox and their bots. So this is really the first time where we have this many users and we're seeing a big price rise. I think it's going to be a slow and steady price rise as opposed to the giant spikes we used to seeing and people have been hoping to predict. But yeah, I mean, this is basically the community's been telling the world this for years, that Bitcoin's going to go up, and we're starting to finally see it. I don't think, you know, it's going to be $10,000 tomorrow. I don't think we're going to see like huge spike, but you know, I don't see us going below 500 again anytime soon. So I would just say hold on to your coins and enjoy the ride.
Ian's right. It may be a more mature ecosystem this time. We don't have just one exchange. We had Mt. Gox last time. Tone, do you think this is it? Bitcoin rises slowly and steadily from here on out?
I really loved your comment a few weeks ago when you said Tone is always short-term bearish. So I'm not sure how that leads to long-term bullish. I actually thought about that, and you're right. I mean, I am short-term bearish on Bitcoin % of the time. It's like so rare that you would catch me and I'm bullish on Bitcoin, because when it's going down, I always think there's more room for it to fall. And I'm also biased, right? Like I love to see Bitcoin going down, right? It just means I'm buying it at lower levels. So I'm like biased. I keep telling everyone it's going to zero. So I've always said that like above 760 is just open air. Like above 760, it's open air to new all-time highs in price. And when you break new all-time highs in price, people just want to jump in. But we're about 20 or 30 more dollars away from a new all-time high in market cap. And that's going to just hit the Twitter sphere real quick, the all-time high in market cap. And people are noticing. I mean, I've been saying it for a while, and like, I know Tour is on top of it, and he'll be tweeting all about it. Not to mention Ethereum is crashing, and all these altcoins are going down, and people are moving back into Bitcoin. Roger Ver called the bottom perfectly. I tweeted that out. I mean, when Roger started saying Bitcoin is losing its dominance against the altcoins and it's trending down for like a year and a half, he called that bottom just top notch. Just like Mike Hearn called the bottom in price twice by, you know, rage quitting and starting Bitcoin XD because the Bitcoin problems, you know, he did those at the lows as well. So, I mean, when markets hit extremes, they completely reverse. So, I mean, I really wanted to see Bitcoin fall to about 650 and kind of take a little more time to break out. Now that it's breaking out, it's probably going to go higher. Honestly, who knows? But I think the Coinbase is having a big effect, because all those people that, you know, were like, you know, smiling, paying 1% to buy their Bitcoin will now have to go into the streets and buy it the way some of us have been doing at a 10% premium. So if all those Coinbase users and Circle users, people realize the IRS issue, and all these people go into the local Bitcoins and now have to pay. And remember, if all these people go to local Bitcoins, I mean, those sellers aren't dumb. They're going to jack up the rate on you. Someone tweeted me the other day out of the UK, and they said, hey, I got a problem. The local Bitcoin sellers on the street in the UK are asking you for KYC information. And my answer to him was, you're telling me that Bitcoin is grossly undervalued, because if Bitcoin is worth 700 and the guy is selling it to you for 710 and he wants to, you know, or he's selling it to you for like even 725 and he wants to KYC you, I guarantee you if you offer him $1,000 for a Bitcoin, he's going to let the KYC go. You know, there is a certain percentage where the seller will say, you know what, I will take the risk of not KYCing you. I might be smart and not sell you $10,000 worth of Bitcoin so that I don't break other laws. But there will always be a price. And I think, and I just thought about this today, and I can certainly see that all of these regulated users are now forced to go into the street to buy it in a non-KYC'd way, and now paying that extra 10 to 15%. So that clearly means that Bitcoin is 10 to 15% underpriced, and it will go up that much.
Let's move on to the exit question. The price of Bitcoin next week, higher or lower? Ian DiMartino.
Yeah, higher or lower next week. I mean, this is such a boring question to me, because I don't think it really matters. If you're buying Bitcoin, you know, for your first time or whatever, or just looking to increase your holdings, it doesn't matter if, you know, you save $10 on it, if in 5 years it's $10,000, you know. So what it is in a week, you know, if you know, I saw it at 780 earlier today, and I guess now it's down to 770. You know, that's fine. Buy it right now rather than hoping it goes down to 750 and then it ends up going to 800. I mean, but, you know, just hurry up and get on the bandwagon before, you know, it's 10 grand a Bitcoin. And if it gets to that point, then it's not going to matter if you save $10 or $20 waiting for it to drop down to like a temporary low, you know, back in 2016. So I don't know. Flip a coin. Maybe it'll be higher. Maybe it'll be lower. But long term is what's important here, and it's going to be trending upwards, I believe.
See, and that's a good point, because 770 is still up for me, but if it hits 780, we're actually down a little. Tone Vase, your thoughts?
I mean, look, I can take a guess on where it'll be next week. I mean, I do my own charting show where I look at the charts, and I've been kind of neutral to slightly bearish on Bitcoin the last 2 months. It broke out the other day, 60 significant level. But again, if we reverse and pull back down to 700, well, look, trying to time it will only, you know, will cause you sleepless nights. Buy it, wait. I mean, I don't recommend, I no longer pitch Bitcoin to people. I just, look, you need it, I'll explain to you why I buy it, and then you make your own decisions. Higher or lower next Friday, but my track record on these things are like maybe a 10% accuracy. So if I start saying short-term bullish, maybe it will go down. I'll be able to buy some more.
Wait, 10% accuracy, man. There's only 2 options. Should at least be 50%.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. No, you would think so. I don't know. I honestly, nobody knows. Nobody knows. I'm gonna say higher this time. I usually say lower. So there you go.
Nobody knows but me, and I'm sticking with what I know, and that means it's going higher. Moving on to issue 3. Issue 3. Bitcoin and Latin America. A new article from Reason magazine this week highlights the secret, dangerous world of Venezuelan Bitcoin mining. Other articles from the same source recognizes the potential of Bitcoin to undermine socialism and promote freedom in the region. Tone Vase, is this the story of the future? Will Bitcoin first transform Latin America and then the world? Tone, are you muted? Can we hear you?
Oh yeah, no, I didn't hear you say who's going.
No, we're gonna have you go first. Go ahead.
Okay. Here's the thing. So I'm still 50-50. Well, look, I'm happy that Bitcoin is used in Venezuela. I'm happy that it's used in Brazil. So I'm not happy that Reason.com is publishing these stories. Situations where you want to bring attention. Situations where rule number 1, you don't talk about Bitcoin. Like, you don't talk about Fight Club. 2 is you don't talk about Fight Club. And you just do it. Profiled in these stories, Rodrigo. I looked at it and I'm like, that guy looks so familiar. Anyway, I got too many tabs open. I can't even find the story now. So I look at it and I see his picture and I'm like, I know him. Very few people know him. See, I know him. I'm gonna sound like I'm gonna sound like the guys from Chicago. So I know Rodrigo. We were both floor traders back in the early days of Bitcoin at the New York City Bitcoin Center, right? Back when there was like a physical exchange, and you can still see it in some of the documentaries. This is like, we're talking 2014 here, 2013, 2014. And he's a quiet guy, knows his stuff, knows what Bitcoin is, clearly doing a good thing. Understand why in the world he would put himself out there like this, right? Then there is another guy profiled in that video. Like, he's like smiling. it's illegal to avoid a 30% tax on goods coming in. It is like this is so frustrating to me, right? Like there are some things you're doing that are actually illegal. Look, I know that people, as the article says, I mean, Venezuelans are breaking into zoos to eat a horse because they're hungry. And I understand that you are helping them by bringing Bitcoin into that country. But you are not helping them if you get arrested. Admire the effort. I don't agree with breaking rules number 1 and 2 of Fight Club. Like in other regions where, you know, public person to make it harder, you know, so the community can rally behind you and all this stuff. But you're doing something really good for an impoverished region. Like, I mean, again, right back in like, even like when people are still smuggling or trying to get out of North Korea and they're like smuggling them into China, they're smuggling them into South Korea. I mean, these people that are running these things, even back like during the slave trade, when people had these tunnels to help, you know, bring people into Canada, bring slaves to the north. I mean, these people didn't take out ads in newspapers showing their face, you know, saying, we are, you know, we will help you, you know, crawl through this tunnel. And this is the part of the story that bothers me. There is a time and place to be public and talk about it, and there is a time and place to just do it. And it looks like for the last 2 years, Rodrigo has been doing, and now it's becoming public, and now he's being public about it. And I think that's a mistake.
And I think it is a good point that Venezuela may be already too far down the road of economic collapse to get Bitcoin. There may be too much rioting in the streets, too much complete lack of everything to set up this kind of infrastructure necessary to convert the country. Maybe his efforts may be more valuable in another country, as hard as that may sound, to look at a larger scale.
Now he is not in those countries. I mean, he's in Brooklyn. I should probably give him a call, go talk to him. I mean, I know I might be one of the very few people that knows the guy. I mean, he's literally, I mean, I'm sure if anyone watched the video, I don't think anyone knows who he is. I literally forgot all about him because I haven't seen him in like a year and a half. Pretty much. But I mean, read that whole mining article. It was just a little too long. It was slightly beyond my attention span. I've been like on a long week. So I didn't even read that the mining one, but I read the other stuff, and like there's a time to be public. There's a time to just do stuff to help people, and he's clearly doing stuff to help people. I mean, it may seem like it's good, but it puts him on a radar, you know, he doesn't want to be on, or I don't think he wants to be on.
Let's see, Ian Dean Martino, your thoughts on this article?
I don't know if the article mentioned where he lives, which you just kind of put out there, Tone.
No, it did. It did.
Oh, okay.
It did.
I must have.
I'm pretty good about that.
Okay.
I'm pretty good about that. Like
sure.
A lot of the stuff, like people tell me something privately, and I will keep it private unless I see it in the public domain, and then all bets are off.
So I think this is actually a good thing. I agree that it's definitely a risky thing for the person putting his face out there, but you know, sometimes we need people to do something risky, and hopefully it doesn't become a martyr, but you know, that could be his future. But you know, okay, so it's illegal to get past this 30% tax. Well, I just have to, you know, look at some of the, you know, the founders of the Silk Road, or, you know, Cody Wilson and Brian Hoffman and their kind of philosophy, which is like, yeah, the government can tell us that we can't do something, but the code says we can. And you know, I've written about this, I wrote about it in my book a little bit, that, you know, this is going to be the big question for our future, is if code supersedes you know, law and regulation, and once it's out there, you can't really get past it. So you know, you look at a thing like Napster, it comes out, you know, it's a big success. Sean Parker gets arrested. You they shut down Napster, and then what happens after that? 10 other sharing programs come out that are centralized, and then a couple of them get shut down. A couple of them are kind of evil with malware, and then we get a couple more iterations, Direct Connect and stuff, and then boom, we got torrents. We got BitTorrent, and now there's nothing they can do to stop BitTorrent because it's decentralized. So maybe the people that are bringing Bitcoin to Venezuela, obviously mining in Venezuela, you can't, because the physical thing, you can't just like avoid put it into cyberspace there, unless you believe in cloud mining, which is the dumbest thing ever. But so maybe some of the early Bitcoiners in Venezuela get arrested or run into some problems, and then the community will figure out ways to work around that. You got a horrible government like that, which to me, I think seems like it's almost on the verge of collapse. You have people this hungry that they're breaking into zoos to eat a horse, which I wanted to mention. How funny is it that they just have horses in their zoos? That a horse is an exotic animal down there. We're so used to like, oh yeah, a horse, whatever. And next little thing has a dog, and then but whatever. Anyways, so the code is going to beat a law eventually, because once it's out in the internet, there's no stopping it. The internet's bigger than Venezuela. So this is just the first step of like getting past those things, and it'll be done in a centralized way with like centralized exchanges. And if the government of Venezuela has the power to, which I don't think it's very clear that they do, they have the power to, they'll shut some of them down, arrest some of them, and then someone will come up with a way around that, or there'll be so many that they won't be able to deal with it. You see this 1,000 times. When I first came out here, Thomas, heard you talking about piracy, and the comparisons between Bitcoin and piracy. I mean, if you can't see it, then I don't know what you're looking at. It's the exact same scenario played out, and I think we're going to see that played out over and over and over again over the next century, of some technology coming out that runs afoul of the government. The government does what it can to stop it, and within stopping it, they help create something that's 1,000 times more powerful, i.e. Bitcoin and BitTorrent and Napster. So I think we'll see the same thing. We'll have centralized. Maybe this is the thing that finally gets us a decentralized exchange that actually works and people actually use. And then we'll get past these silly governments that want to charge you 30% just to go buy goods outside of the country that aren't priced insanely like they are in Venezuela right now. I think I'm more socialist than most Bitcoiners out there. I believe in universal healthcare and all that stuff, and it's not a very popular opinion in this space. But like a government like Venezuela, like even I see how evil and messed up it is. So I say, I've been saying for years that the spot Bitcoin is going to make gains is in the third world. It's not in America, where we have perfect banking systems and we have a stable currency. It only really take on in America when people need it, and they don't really need it right now. If you're a person who pays attention to what the Fed's doing and all that stuff, then yeah, you want Bitcoin as a hedge, and you're gonna hope that's gonna go to 10,000 and you'll be rich and stuff like that. But people in Venezuela need it so that they hold on to their grocery money, and so they can pay rent. And those are the people that are going to be helped the most by Bitcoin, and that's what's going to cause Bitcoin to explode. Remember before the 2013 price rise, there's like a bunch of articles, the Chinese are getting into Bitcoin, and then boom, it went up. Then a whole lot of things would happen. Mt. Gox went down, and Chinese government put controls on Bitcoin, and so then we had that slow descent down to 196 or whatever it was. But ultimately, Bitcoin has always been designed for the third world. It's always been designed for the underbanked and the unbanked. And we're seeing that right now. I said during the Greece thing, it's only going to take one country to collapse and their currency to become completely worthless for Bitcoin to explode. and we're getting pretty close to that right now in Venezuela. As to whether or not it's too late to help them, maybe not. But the people in Venezuela who already have Bitcoin, who've been holding Bitcoin for 6 months or a year or something, I guarantee they're very, very, very happy that they bought that Bitcoin a year ago, or 6 months ago, or whatever it was. So we're Bitcoin, if we want to say we at the community help Bitcoin or whatever, we've helped Venezuelans already. And that's going to continue. And I hope more Venezuelans buy Bitcoin, and the exchange that helps them do it and it helps them buy goods outside the country that aren't so expensive, then I think that's something that should be applauded.
I think Ian made a lot of good points there. What I want to go back to is this idea of code as law. And you were talking about what Cody Wilson might believe and what others might believe. And I thought about cyber warfare, and I thought about the US versus Russia and China, and how basically we're in this whole new world where there are no official laws. Officially, our governments have treaties. We work together. Even China, Russia, and the US, there are treaties and agreements. But if you look at cyber warfare, there aren't any agreements. So China might think, hey, maybe it's okay to DDoS a site in the US because there's not a law against it. And Russia might break into some email servers and then publish them. These kind of things are all happening in this vacuum of no law. And for a long time, what we thought with something like Napster is that the law would catch up and the law would start to understand innovation and have a more open, hands-off policy. But what really could happen with Bitcoin is Bitcoin and the internet could completely separate from the law. And what becomes possible in code, what you can run, smart contracts, Ethereum, Bitcoin, whatever it is that you can run, is what you can do. And that the law just never catches up. Tone, what do you think about that? Is it going to catch up? Or are we going to see the Coinbase story is a bit of an IRS, an attempt at a take back, a normalization of the old system where you would check the law first, and the new system is just, I coded it, it runs, I'm done.
Guys, I think the law will catch up. I really do. The law will catch up, maybe some jurisdiction. The law will catch up until there is, another superpower and a new constitution, right? So,
then explain piracy.
What do you mean?
I mean, the law didn't catch up to BitTorrent. Now we have anyone download anything they want on the internet. They shut down Napster, but there's still decentralized BitTorrent, which they
in a way though
completely
I would argue
ability to stop.
Wait, I'll explain. Like the law catching up doesn't necessarily mean it will be a bad thing, right? So the law catching up may be a complete overhaul of music copyright to make piracy legal, right? So the law does eventually catch up, and it could usually, sometimes it's good. Like, look, what America brought to the world was the separation of church and state. Maybe in another 40, 50 years, there'll be a similar thing where we separate, technology from state, or something like that, right? So the law will catch up, especially once millennials control the government, right? So we still have 60-year-olds all over the government, right?
I've been hearing that my whole life, though. As soon as the Gen Xers get in, everything's going to change. As soon as it never happens. It's always old, crusty curmudgeons in government.
Yeah, and eventually it will happen, right? Because then right now we're complaining. I mean, finally they're catching on to what the internet is. Of course, the technology has evolved. I just want to make I know I want to move on to the next topic as well. Just two very quick points. So one of them is, for every Cody Wilson, there's 100 Ross Ulbrichts, right? So you don't want to be the Ross Ulbricht. And Ross Ulbricht was trying to be private, right? I'm not even saying he was or wasn't Pirate Roberts. He was accused. He was, the court decided he was Pirate Roberts, right? It doesn't, to them, it doesn't matter. I mean, again, right? Do we know if he was or wasn't? We have no idea, right? But the court has decided that he was. And I don't wish that on anyone. And Ross Ulbricht wasn't even a public person, right? If someone was running a darknet market, they're not out there, advertising for the darknet market, at least, and neither showing their face. They're being private about it. And look, cryptocurrencies it's borderline illegal for all governments, because again, there is no law, and just because there isn't a law, you can't assume that it's legal. Maybe at some point this was the assumption, but in today's world, in my head, if it's not clearly stated as legal, my assumption is that it's not. My assumption isn't that it is. Now, I'm glad that there are people that push the limits. I'm not going to be one of those people, and some of these people go to jail. But the people that know they're pushing the limits, they're not public about it. They're pretty private about it. What Cody Wilson did is an exception, and he knew he was going to have a huge percentage of the population on his side as he did it. So Cody took a very calculated risk, and he knew that there would be enough support to kind of lower this risk. And this is the reason why, a lot of these other people, they literally stay in the dark. They stay anonymous. Even Satoshi knew this and stayed anonymous. Vitalik chose a different path, and we will see how Vitalik's path ends, as well as as a lot of other people in this crypto space. So I do think regulation will at least catch up to them, and then we'll see what the next rounds of CIOs is like, because I bet you that the next wave of CIOs is going to be anonymous, and they ain't going to do as good. I mean, the CIOs...
I think you mean ICOs, right, Tom?
ICO, sorry. It's been, like I said, it's been a long week. I've been 4 Bitcoin conferences this week alone that I've attended, so I'm like burning out here.
But I do think Tone makes a good point about Cody versus Ross. Cody developed a 3D printed gun. He published the plans, but he didn't really start a company where you could order the parts to make your gun. He kind of separated himself, where I'd say Ross, by creating allegedly creating the Silk Road darknet market, the Dread Pirate Roberts or whoever it was, created this libertarian experiment. But it was also a lot more than that, because it went to millions of dollars and thousands of orders, and it was just a complex thing. But what you also said, Tone, about the debate about the powers, about what is not restricted is open versus what is not restricted is closed, that's an old debate, and it's been around for a long time, and I think we should have it more in the future. It also came up during the Constitutional Convention when they were discussing about the powers, and what they actually decided is that the power is not enumerated in the Constitution would be reserved for the states, which has then been a whole debate in itself. But I think we're going to move on to issue 4. So let's just try to get out today. So issue 4, SFMuni hacker demands Bitcoin ransom. In what's beginning to sound like a broken record, Bitcoin and its partner in crime, CryptoLocker, the software that encrypts your hard drive and demands a ransom, was back in play this week, this time forcing the SFMuni system to run free fares during the peak Black Friday shopping sales, and the hackers demanded a ransom. Many cities are stocking up on to pay a similar ransom. Ian DiMartino, is the hack the fault of Bitcoin and encryption, or are insecure systems responsible?
Definitely insecure systems. I mean, that's like I don't even know how to say it. Our encryption's the problem. I mean, the lack of encryption's the problem. The lack of security is the problem. This has been like you said, it's a broken record, but this is just a new wave of crime that is not even, I don't even want to say wave crime. It's just a new type of crime that's enabled by anonymous payments, which we knew anonymous payments would enable new types of crimes, but the trade-off of getting rid of that is, allowing the government and potentially anyone who has, if we went back to the Clipper chip and put a Clipper chip in every phone and every computer, or, built the back door for the government, then it would be not only the government knows every single one of your purchases, but anyone who's able to hack the government, which they have proved that they are immensely hackable. Just look at DNC, look at what we saw in this election. So the encryption is the only defense you have against hackers. So to blame these hacks on our only defense to them is asinine. And I'm not saying that you think that, but I'm sure some people do. It's an old bumper sticker. If you outlaw guns, only outlaws will have guns. Well, the same thing can apply to encryption. If you outlaw encryption, it's not going to stop people from using encryption. It's just going to criminalize the people that use encryption. So, no, it's that these companies and governments have just been so lax on their security practices for decades now. And now that there's an anonymous payment method that makes it so someone can profit off that, people are going to profit off of that. What they're going to have to do is start taking their cybersecurity seriously, which they haven't been doing since the 90s. The first online store to offer "quote unquote" safe purchases online was a site called Netmarket, and 5 years after, the very first internet e-commerce transaction that was safe, that wasn't like drugs or something, that was also, a legal transaction on a website. Someone bought a Sting album, of all things. 5 years after that, that site got hacked, and about 100,000 credit card numbers were, sent to hackers. So this has just been a recurrent thing that happens on the internet. Now they found a different way to profit off of it, where they ask for Bitcoins rather than just taking credit cards and going to Best Buy as quickly as they can and buying TVs. But companies have to take their cybersecurity seriously, and now maybe they finally will.
It's time to step up, and I agree. Sting's a great artist, but I prefer his work with the police. And Ian's right here. It's very complex. Encryption is both the problem and the solution. And what I would bring up is, again, we're seeing what I see as a combination of tools. Originally, Linux was tools, open source tools developed by Richard Stallman. And what Linus did is he put those tools together into Linux. And Satoshi, in the same way, took several tools and ideas about cryptography and coins and Bitcoin, put those together into Bitcoin. What we've seen the hackers do is take this crypto locker, encrypt your hard drive program, take the ability to get Bitcoin, and put that together into, now when you take over someone's computer, back in the day, maybe you could delete some files or put up some funny stuff on their website or just kind of mess with them. Now you can lock down their hard drive, request money in a kind of pseudo-anonymous fashion with Bitcoin, and it just really comes together. It's this perfect storm of negative and bad computer tools. But Ian's right. We can't outlaw encryption. It's not going to work. The cat's out of the bag. Tone Vase, what do you think about these hacks and hacking?
Okay, hold on. I need to pull up a... I'm going to share my screen in a second, because I just remembered that I had a screenshot of this. Okay, so... Okay, here we go. And I want to share my screen. So I have to make this quick, because I'm supposed to run out somewhere. But hold on a second. Let me just share my screen real quick. Excellent. All right, I have the image. Here it is. Okay, can you guys see this?
Yep, looks good.
All right, excellent. So I learned one of the best presentations I've seen all year, not by a Bitcoin guy, but he understands Bitcoin very well. It was by a man named Mikko Hyppinen, and they do basically internet security. So I agree with Ian when I just don't blame the current system, right? I agree that the problem is current internet security, but also they didn't need the current internet security the way we need it today. So yes, they absolutely need to upgrade their system and use encryption and give their users privacy, so that a lot of these hacks are mitigated. So CryptoLocker is not new, and I learned this from Mikko Hyppinen's presentation, because here is CryptoLocker from 1989, where your computer has been encrypted and all your files have been locked up, and you need to send a money order or cash to a PO box in Panama in order to get the decryption key. So, and I was very fascinated by this. Another thing that I learned from Miko's presentation is that, wait, did I finish sharing? Okay, here we go. The other thing that I learned from Miko's presentation is that CryptoLocker is the single unicorn in the crypto space. They have made over $1 billion in profits or revenues, which is probably almost the same because their expenses are very, very small. As far as I know, their only expense, the most useful help desks, because when you call them, they will basically walk you through how to go and get Bitcoin and how to use it. And Bitcoin.
And they really have a motivated set of buyers there. Those people really want to buy those Bitcoins.
Oh, Nico was showing like some of the help desk's conversations on chat and advice. If you get crypto locked, you turn off your spell check, you pretend you're in 8th grade, and you try to explain to them how you're a poor janitor, all that money, and they will drop the price for you. They are a very nice, helpful help desk to help you with the problem of decrypting your computer. They are also responsible for not a majority, but a decent chunk of the value of your Bitcoin. And creating this account
between CryptoLocker and the Silk Road, what a beautiful system we've built.
Yes. So I mean, all of these systems, I mean, again, right, the more your system has more lives depending on it, the more you should care about security. Also, I can see the future where all of these systems are becoming less and less independent, less and less connected, and less and less in danger of losing the data, right? So I try not to have any, I mean, I do back up my computer, but you know what? The only thing that's in my computer that's all that valuable, and they're not even pictures of other people. It's more like because I tweet a lot and I usually tweet with like pictures and screenshots. So it would suck to lose it. Like it would, like if my computer got locked up, the only thing I would really lose is like my stored website history, I guess, like all the links that I usually go to. It would suck to replicate like 100 websites. And some of the ones I don't go to that often won't save. And it would also suck, you know, it on my blog and Twitter. It would suck to have to go back and retrieve all those. Like if I lose all of my scam busting work on Steemit, you know, that 100 hours of work, all those like fancy pictures and like the tone that people like to say because I do in all of my tweets. Like it would suck to lose those pictures, but you know what? There's nothing all that valuable on my computer. So if I get a CryptoLocker, as long as I can reinstall the operating system, it's not that big a deal. So I can definitely see.
Yeah, but Tone, most people keep a lot of data on their computer. They're kind of haphazard with it. Let's generally suggest backups are very key, especially if you're important data. Upload your photos to somewhere online. Maybe Apple has iPhoto or the Google photo backup or whatever Microsoft has.
But you know what?
Back up your important documents, and then you're in less trouble. So.
But yeah, Tone, do you realize how long it's going to take me to re-download all my porn? Like it's going to take hours, man.
Back up your porn.
I don't have any of that in my computer, but no one's gonna believe me though. But right, I know it's a hassle, but I think what a lot of, especially like a company, I think they're gonna start at least investigating, like, you know, they're gonna start preparing for this, and if it happens, there won't be anything too important stored on that computer to get encrypted in the first place. And I love what
that's also just good information security practices to have these backups, to have your data is separate from your system and your system is clean and your data is safe. I mean, these people have to have good practices.
I love what Airbitz is doing with their edge security model. And I don't like storing my pictures on a cloud, like I said earlier. I don't want to give Apple all my. I don't even use Apple. I hate Apple. I don't want to. I think my phone is automatically backing up my pictures on a. I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that, so I need to turn that off. I'll store them in my phone. I guess I back them up from my phone to my computer. I'm not going to lose them both at the same time. phone security is better than your computer security. Also probably due to regulations or monopolies, I guess, in Windows. So, I mean, all those things, that's pretty much, I think I had something else to say on this topic, but.
I'd be careful about thinking your phone's secure, though. I used to write about phones, and there's a lot of malware is really growing, especially in the Android space. Last wrote about cell phones in I think 2013. At that point, it was something like 4% of malware was targeted towards Android phones, but that was up from 1% the year before. So it's definitely a growing problem with cell phones, and I expect that to just continue. So I wouldn't say that cell phones are inherently more secure than your desktop. It's just that they're targeted a lot less, but they're being targeted more and more.
I would also say the other attack vector on a cell phone is they call the cell phone company and get them to forward your number to them. Then they take over all of your 2FAs that you're set to your cell phone. That can be a real problem. So everyone should watch out for that.
Yeah, someone just wrote an article about that. Where did I read that? Where they were talking about the how easy it was for a hacker to get their number transferred over to the hacker, and then took over Authy, and then everything else was.
It's a real problem because when you hear people and they're like, I had 2FA and I still got hacked, it's usually this phone number problem. So.
Yeah, Joby Weeks, they got it off BitClub. They got him for 100 Bitcoin, and then they used his Facebook to then send messages to his friends. And Sasha ended up sending him 12 Bitcoin. There's a whole video on this. Sasha Daygame. Just Google Sasha Daygame on. It's a short 20-minute interview.
Oh, that's really lost 100 Bitcoins of his little Ponzi scheme there. I feel so bad for him.
Well, he lost his own 100 Bitcoin, but
Joby's a nice guy. Bitcoin, nice guy. Whatever.
But that's right. Oh, this is what I was gonna say, right? So, a lot of people are now worried. So this is another use case, an additional use case for CryptoLocker, which I'm gonna say it here because I've been saying it publicly for a while. Everyone is always scared off-chain scaling. What happens, after 2 more halvings when there is no Bitcoin subsidy, when there's no more, new freshly mined Bitcoins? And my answer was, well, I bet you there will be companies, and there already are companies, willing to mine at a loss. So because CryptoLocker has already made over $1 billion in profit, and most of it, according to Miko, is just sitting there, because how the hell do you move $1 billion in illicit funds?
Do you mean the software CryptoLocker got $1 billion, or is there that's spread out between a bunch of different hackers, right? It's not one entity is.
Well, you don't know,
right?
It's probably spread out, but I mean, a few of them are. I mean, you'd have to dig into his work. The entity of CryptoLocker is spread out against multiples, but I'm sure there is a few major players. I bet you there's 3 or 4 that are dominating that space. But yes, the concept of CryptoLocker has made $1 billion. And if it is 1 or 2 major entities that are making this much money, I think they would be more than happy to mine at a loss to keep Bitcoin as stable as possible so they can continue making money. And the darknet markets will do the same, and the gambling industry will do the same, and the porn industry will do the same. And if Netflix goes to the Bitcoin a la carte model instead of monthly subscriptions by credit card, an a la carte model where you pay, again, in the future, assuming Netflix wants to adopt Bitcoin.
Which would be a major advantage to them, especially if they're international rollout. They're having tons of problems internationally.
Plus, how the hell do you go to Africa if not with something like Bitcoin? I think they would be more than happy to put an expense onto their yearly tax form that they've spent, $20 million mining to keep the Bitcoin network stable, because it's bringing them $40 million in revenue.
And the only real problem here again is copyright. If I pay Netflix $1 in Bitcoin, why should it matter where in the world I want to enjoy the content of that movie?
Correct.
The $1's the $1, the movie's a movie, no problem.
Correct. So if more of these companies are so dependent of Bitcoin for their profits, I think they would gladly give up some. I mean, it would be just another expense
And it's also good PR. It's a public service. We're helping mine the Bitcoin network. You know.
Well,
correct.
Well, you gotta think.
So I can. All right, guys. I'm sorry. I have to go. I'm already late, and I'm not gonna get to story of the week or prediction. I think I've made enough predictions so far on this show, and I do have to run. It's like Friday night, which is why sometimes I have to cut these short, even though this has already gone on longer than we originally planned.
All right, Tone. Thanks for being on. We'll see you next week. Let's go to Ian DiMartino. Do you have a prediction or a story of the week?
Well, I just wanted to say real quick what he's talking about when Bitcoin goes, when there's no more subsidies of to support mining. There's still going to be the fees, and you go to supply and demand. You know, that could actually raise the price of Bitcoin. If we ran out of gold in the world, people would still want to buy gold necklaces. It's just that the price of gold would skyrocket. You know, but there'd still be people trying to buy.
Put through a variable fee. I think they can raise the fee in the future to encourage more mining. So,
but to your point though, and to his point about mining at a loss too, I mean that could have good tax implications. You know, we're like, hey, we invested in this Bitcoin mining and we lost, you know, $1 million, so that lowers us to another tax bracket.
Which brings us full circle back to the first issue. Good job, Ian.
You see, I'm looking out for you. Prediction: just keep buying Bitcoin because it's going to go up. I saw some people in our chat talking about random ICOs. I just want to take this opportunity to say don't invest in any ICO. All right, if you're going to be an early adopter on the next coin that's going to overtake Bitcoin, you can wait till after the ICO. You know, wait till after the ICO, see if it's going to be stable and it's going to last. All these people that bought Zcash during the ICO or immediately after the ICO, what do you think? The whole world's going to switch over to Zcash tomorrow? Just wait. Wait 3 months. Wait 6 months before you put savings into it. Just wait. ICO, let all the suckers buy at the ICO. You wait 3, 4, 6 months, and then see if it's still going strong. Then maybe you can buy in because it's going to take. If any coin's going to overtake Bitcoin, it's going to take years. It's not going to. So you can still be, even if you buy Bitcoin today, you're still an early adopter. So if you're buying an altcoin, you're a super early adopter. There's no reason going to an ICO. And I see you punks selling ICOs in our chat. Stop it.
Good warning, Ian. Very good warning. And everyone should watch out. And finally, I have a prediction. They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up. I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open a minute or two. Then the Who's down in Whoville will all cry boo-hoo. That's a noise that I must simply hear. So he paused, and the Grinch put a hand to his ear. And he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, then it started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. Why, this sound sounded merry. It couldn't be so, but it was merry, very. He stared down at Whoville. The Grinch popped his eyes. Then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came somehow or another. It came just the same. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags. And he puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, in Whoville, they say that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light. And he brought back the toys and the food for the feast. And he himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beast. Oh, we're out of time. Until next time, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.